Welcome to Equality Education, a show about inclusive teaching, supportive parenting, and a kinder future. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Equality Education with me, Olly Pike. And today's episode is actually part one of advice for LGBTQ+ teachers when coming out at school. Over the next two episodes, you will hear me speaking with Garry Ratcliffe, who is currently the head teacher of 3 primary schools in Kent. Garry has been teaching for 25 years, he identifies as gay, and he has been kind enough to share on this podcast some incredibly helpful and powerful pieces of advice, which I hope will inspire confidence in any LGBTQ+ teacher who wants to bring their 100% authentic self to school. So thank you for listening to this episode. Please remember that you can help me to make more content like this by visiting popandolly.com/donate. And that's also where you can find a number of equality inclusive classroom resources too. Enjoy the episode. Hello, Garry. Thank you for joining me on Equality Education today. How are you doing?
Hi, Olly. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Lovely to be here today.
Awesome. So before we start, Garry, what are your pronouns?
I am he, him.
Amazing. And I'm super glad you're here today because you've got lots of experience as a teacher, as a head teacher, actually, because you've been teaching for 25 years and you're currently executive head of 3 primary schools in Kent. So you're like a triple head teacher.
Who would believe it? 25 years I've been teaching and I only feel 25 still. So I'm doing well.
Oh, you still look 25, Garry.
Thank you.
And just a little background on you. So you are partnered. You've got a wonderful partner, a husband called Kyle. And you've got 4 adorable children. And I know this because I've done a little family portrait of you for your Christmas cards. And you sent me so many amazing pictures. You're such a sweet little family. Well, not little. There's a lot of you.
I think there's quite a lot of us, actually. Yeah. So we've got a 16-year-old who's nearly 17, and that's Hayden. And then we've got Bella and Curtis and Phoebe. So 2 boys and 2 girls. And we're a big, happy family. So it's all good.
Yes, you're super, super cute. And like I said, I'm thrilled that you're here today because a little while ago, I kind of put out like a tweet saying, does anyone have advice for teachers on how to come out to their class? Because I feel like this is a really important issue. And it was amazing to kind of see the response from various people. But I also reached out to you via email and you sent me back like this most amazing advice. And I was like, I should just get Garry on to talk about this because I feel like we can dive into it and ask more questions as we go. So I'm really happy you're here. And what I just kind of want to start with is talk about why it's important for teachers to be their authentic self at school. Do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, I think we need to go back a little bit really and just I just want to tell you a little bit about my experience because I've always been I've always been really happy in my own skin, in my own body. And I've known from a very early age who I was and who I loved and who I was attracted to and what made me me. And so it had never occurred to me that going into a profession that I really wanted to join, that there may be an issue with this, that I wouldn't be able to be my authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a massive shock to me 25 years ago that I couldn't just walk into a school and be me. So that was a shock 25 years ago, and things have moved on so much. And people are being accepted more and more for their authentic self. However, there is still a great deal of fear, and there's a great deal of ignorance within the education community, I think. And so it's not as, it's just not as simple as walking in and being your authentic self, because it entirely depends on the school you're in, perhaps the age group of the children, perhaps the area where the school is situated. It really depends on the attitudes of the senior leadership of the school. But it's really important that that we are given the opportunity to be ourselves within school, because a school is a community, and a community is made up of a rich variety of different personalities and different characters, all coming from different backgrounds and different life experiences. And so it's really important that we are our authentic self.
Exactly. And would you say that also there's so many benefits to teachers being their authentic selves? Like it's gonna build like a better trust relationship, I guess, between student and teacher as well.
Teachers have such a big responsibility, and they have such a big part to play in every young person's life. You've got to remember that for a 5-year-old child going into school, that their teacher will be one of the most influential adults in that child's life. And so we have a massive responsibility. And if we are going to live up to that responsibility, we can only do that if we are our authentic self. We can't be playing a role for 8 hours a day in front of 30 children, all with their own needs and all with their own characters themselves. And it becomes really complicated, actually. So I remember 25 years ago, when it clearly was not going to be easy for me to be out and proud within my school. You start to build stories around your own life, and that becomes really complicated. And if you're going to be a trusted adult within your school, there has to be an element of honesty to that, I think. And that's what I encourage all of my staff. I've got 250 staff across 3 schools. And if there's one thing I want them to be, it's authentic to themselves and to each other. And that is how we're going to build trust between parents and teachers, and young people and children and teachers too.
Yes. And I feel like we just want teachers to be comfortable as well. As you said, like they're under so much pressure as it is, like having to play a role is just going to be exhausting.
Teachers, yeah, absolutely. Teachers are under a lot of pressure. Until you are in that role, you'll never understand the pressure that comes with it. And the pressure is a beautiful thing, because you are shaping and developing and nurturing these young minds that are going to be the future. And you can really only do that. And you can only do that honestly if you can be yourself within a school. Because school is not just about teaching English and maths, school is about developing character and developing resilience and learning how to cooperate with each other, and learning about different faiths and cultures, and learning about different family types. And for me, and in my schools, one of our key values within my schools is equality. And I'm much more concerned about my children in our schools being good people, open to new ideas, accepting of different values and different family types and different skin color and different religion. I'm much more interested in that and focused on that than I am about whether they are really good at maths. Because somebody who is brilliant at maths but is closed to new ideas or people that don't fit into their norm, they're not going to be good people, and they're not going to be helping our society. But if someone is okay at maths, but is actually a really open person and is willing to ask questions and willing to understand and willing to question their own beliefs and their own ideals, then they're going to be somebody who's really going to support and help our society, I think. And I think as a primary school head teacher, that's our job.
I think it's vital that we prioritize preparing these kids for life in modern Britain and nurture them as human beings. I feel like so many people just disregard kids because they're kids. And I'm like, you do know they're going to grow up to be adults and they're going to be in charge of society, and they're going to be in charge of us when we're old. So we need to make sure we do a really good job preparing them as decent human beings and kind human beings.
I was in, before lockdown, I was in Starbucks, and I was getting a coffee, and the person behind the counter, they asked for your order and then they asked for your name. And I said, oh yeah, my name's Gary. And the guy behind the counter looked at me and said, I can't write Gary. I've got to write Mr. Ratcliffe. And it was a previous student that I'd taught probably 10, 15 years ago. And because I think if you are your own self and you do, you're open and honest with the pupils, the young people, the families that you teach, then being in Starbucks with Kyle, my husband, and with my children, it was just a natural continuation of a relationship that started with this pupil 10, 15 years ago. So I was able to firstly introduce Kyle to this young man and say, oh, this is my husband. This is Kyle. This is who I talked about at school. And he said, oh, hi, pleased to meet you. And, we got a free coffee out of it, which was always a bonus, so,
yes.
And I think it was only because, even early on in my career, I made the decision that I was going to be open and transparent from day one, that I wasn't going to start building up secrets or building up a sense of mystery, that young person standing behind that counter then had no issue or no surprise or no problem at all with the relationship that he was being presented with in Starbucks. So because he'd been taught about it in a very open and honest way right from being at primary school.
Oh, that's amazing. That's so good that it kind of comes back like that.
And I think it does come back like that a lot. And, I don't know about you, Olly, but, I knew I was different to many of my other friends from a very young age. And I see it in our schools right now. I see children who are struggling with different aspects of their character, or I see children who are absolutely embracing different things and really going with expressing their own character and their own sexuality, even at 9, 10, 11 years old. And that's just a wonderful thing to develop within any school. And I think that comes from the role models that we provide as teachers and support assistants and admin members of staff in the school. And that transparency really helps those children who know from a very young age that they're different to other people.
I feel like there's kind of two strands to this topic, because I feel like you need to come out to the staff and your teachers and your colleagues, but then there's also coming out to the children as well.
I think you've forgotten a key group there in terms of who we need to come out to, and that's the parent body as well. So
yeah, of course.
In a primary education setting, the parent body are a key stakeholder group that we mustn't forget. And I think parental involvement and parental engagement diminishes as the children get older. So at secondary school, I think absolutely you're right. It's much more about the staff and the pupil body. But at primary school, there's that third group, which is about the parents.
Of course, yeah.
And I think my advice about coming out from day one is only as a result of my previous experiences, which were pretty poor when I started teaching. And some of those experiences that I had, I'm sure are still around now. I'm sure that there are still times when schools don't get it right. And so it's just about finding the right way to come out to those groups based on the context of the school that you're working in. So, I mean, even maybe 6 months ago, Olly, I had a young teacher, a young man, he must have been 22, 23 years old, who wasn't working for one of my schools. He actually worked in another school down the road, and he just emailed me out of the blue and asked if he could come and talk to me, because he was really struggling to find a way to come out in his school, and whether the advice he was being given by the head teacher at his school was right and what he should follow. So although attitudes towards sexuality and different family types have moved on significantly, there are still issues for teachers today. And I think so my advice or my experience is based on my own bad experiences and what I've learned through the years, but also how I've seen other people come out in my schools, because we've got a number of gay, lesbian, bisexual teachers and support staff within my schools, and to see how they've dealt with it has been really helpful to me to be able to then offer advice to other people. But I was speaking to Kyle, my husband, about what advice he would give, as someone who doesn't work in a school. And I think we came up with the fact that being transparent and open and honest from day one makes it much, much easier. And even at the interview stage, trying to be open, and it's a really brave thing to do still. It is a brave and tough thing to do, but to try to convey your own situation within an interview setting is really useful. And I think it's really useful because teachers need to remember that an interview an interview experience is a two-way process. So they're interviewing you for a job, but you are also interviewing them.
Yeah.
Do you want to be in that particular school? Have they got the right values that would make you feel happy and comfortable and would help you to thrive within your professional career? And in order for any teachers to succeed, they've got to be in a setting where they feel able to thrive and able to be heard. So I would always have a question ready at interview, which talks about the school's attitude to different families, or the school's attitude to sexuality. And I think the answer that they come back with is always really telling and really, for me, it would be instrumental in deciding whether I would accept a job or not. Teachers should never be scared of, young teachers who maybe it's their first teaching post after graduating. They should never be scared to say, no, this isn't the school for me.
Yeah.
And move on and find a school that is for them, because it is very difficult to change a system when you're new to that system yourself. Okay, so it's much easier for me or other LGBTQ plus leaders within education to change the system from within. But actually, if you're a young teacher that just wants a good place to work, then find a place that will suit your own values. That would be my advice.
Definitely.
Don't set up a lie or don't set up a story from day one, because then that becomes really difficult to break.
Yeah.
And you find yourself spiraling into more and more deceit. And some of my best friends have come from places where I've worked. And if you're going to develop honest relationships with the staff, then I would, strongly urge people to be as honest as they possibly can be from day one. I think that the situation is slightly different if you're a more established teacher or a more experienced teacher and you're looking to come out in some way. And my advice then would be very different. And that would then be about finding the ally within school, finding the person that you could talk to seek advice and to support. But coming out at interview is certainly a good way to start. I didn't do that for the job I'm currently in. I've been involved with my particular schools for 12 years. So 12 years ago, I didn't mention it in interview, but it just so happened there was a school event, like a fair type thing. And I just brought my husband along. I just put him in the car and told him he was coming to my new school, and he got out the car and he mingled. He said hi to staff. He said hi to parents. He was clearly with me, but people didn't really understand the relationship at that point because I didn't wear a big sign saying, "This is my husband," with an arrow, and he didn't have a t-shirt on saying, "I'm with the head teacher." But the next day the question started, "Oh, who was that guy you were with yesterday?" And then it's really easy to say, "Oh, that's my husband." Mm-hmm. Rather than, he's just a friend. He's a friend that you might see a lot of, and people at that point were just like, "Oh, okay."
Who was asking that question? Was it the staff and parents?
Yeah, staff. I think for parents and children, because they were so focused on the event, I was just there as another member of staff. Kyle, my husband, was just there as another adult, and it didn't really occur to them. So coming out to the parents and to the children was much more subtle and much more controlled, actually.
Yeah.
I really thought about how I was going to do that. And I did that in some really easy ways. And I did it to, I think I did it to try to gauge a reaction from individual parents or individual children to see where I may need to have specific conversations, or where I needed to do a bit of extra work to ensure that they understood my position in the school, but also my relationship and my family background. So the first thing I did was I made sure I got some really good family photos, put them in a nice frame, and made sure there was a photo of myself and my husband and my 4 children on my desk, where any visitor that came into my office could see that was a family that was really important to me.
And that's quite a nice little simple step to start with, do you think?
Yeah, because it's not threatening. It's not, it enables conversation to be prompted if people are interested. And the parent body is just like any other group of people, You'll get the introverts that will just look at it and then internalize some questions and think, "Oh, I wonder who that is. Oh, I wonder what the relationship is between those 2 men in that photo. I wonder who those children are." You'll then get the other complete extreme of the massive extrovert that will literally come in, pick up the photo, have a look at the children, say, "Oh, he's pretty," or "He's handsome." "Oh, who's this in the photo? Is that your husband, or is that your boyfriend?" And be much more forthright with it. You'll also have the group that are not accepting and are still discriminatory, who would think, oh, he's one of them, which I had quite a lot at the beginning.
Oh no.
But actually, it's much easier to tackle that level of discrimination if you are open and if you are who you are from the very first moment. So it's much more difficult to tackle discrimination if you are trying to live a lie within your workplace, I would say.
What advice would you maybe give, though, to a teacher who didn't kind of come out at the very beginning and is now maybe 3, 4, 5 years in a school, and they're like desperate to come out, but they're just not sure? I mean, a photo is a really good start, but then not everyone has a partner or has children, but they still might want to be their authentic self.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is really common. That is still really common that, we're all on a different journey, aren't we? So we all decide to be our authentic self at different points in our life,
Yeah.
And that's absolutely fine. And so the advice I'm giving about, trying to be open and honest from day one, that only works if you are ready to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you are happy with yourself and comfortable in your own skin. But if you're 5 years into a relationship within a school, if you're established as a teacher or even as a teaching assistant, then it's never too late to start to make those decisions to come out. And I think, you need to find an ally within school, I think, and you need to start that conversation with them.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to identify that person that you really get on with on a personal level as well as a professional level, that will be able to help you and support you and be there for you when you hit that moment of panic or when you hit that moment of fear, because, coming out is coming out, wherever you do it, there can often be an element of fear, can't there? Or concern or worry about how people are going to react. So having an ally is really important, I think. I think the other thing to do is to, if you're an established teacher or established member of staff, to look around you and to see if there's evidence or a culture of this being okay within your school. Seek out the policies or the procedures.
Mm-hmm.
Does your school have an equality policy or an equal opportunities policy? Do they have a particular value around equality? Is there another teacher within the school that is in an established relationship, and because they've been there for 15 years and everyone knows them, it's just accepted? It would be very unusual to be in a situation where you couldn't find one ally or one person who had already gone through that situation, I think. And it can often feel very lonely because part of the whole coming out practice can be really lonely, and it can be really, what's the word? It can just be unsettling, can't it? And you need to be able to open your eyes to see what's around you, to see what can give you that support. I mean, and the other thing, most teachers are in a teaching union. They're supported by some sort of trade union or professional body, and all of those groups have their own LGBTQ plus departments or support groups that would be able to offer you specific advice.
Yeah. I saw that the NAHT, National Association of Head Teachers, they actually, they encourage all schools to be supportive of their LGBT plus staff. I think they've even got some guidance as well. And they encourage head teachers to take personal responsibility. Yes. To ensure that their staff is looked up, their LGBT plus staff are looked after, which is the way it should be. Yeah.
Some of the other teaching unions have very similar groups, and it's worth checking that out, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
But, within our school, we have an LGBT plus group. And it's the group serves two functions. It's there as a support network, I guess. So if there's a particular issue that someone within that group is facing, that they can share it within that group. But it also provides an advisory aspect as well. So, people within that group can put ideas forward to the leadership of the school to say how they think our curriculum should be more diverse or more inclusive. And that sort of group, I would encourage any head teacher to be setting up. And that doesn't mean you need to have 10 LGBT plus colleagues within the school. The group could be made up of allies as well as members who identify within that group too. But I don't think, for anyone who's established in a school, I think that the key there is about reaching out to one person to seek their advice, because schools are mini communities, and each school has its own unique character and its own unique set of values. And so you just want to be sure that you are in a safe and supportive place before you make that next step. And then, of course, if you're not, you've got a decision to make. You know, do you and I think there's three options there. There's you know, do you stay hidden and stay in a position where you're unable to come out and just accept that, or do you actually think, I'm not prepared to put up with this anymore, and seek employment within a school that is more open and more aligned to your own values? Or the third really interesting option is to stay and to challenge those values and those systems head on.
Yeah, and then it'll be vital to have support, like an ally in the school.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that would be a big thing to take on your own.
Absolutely, yeah. And don't ever do it on your own, but don't always just believe that things can't change, because they can.
We know they can.
Yeah, and it takes someone just to stand up and say, this isn't right, for things to begin to change.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just a case of not maybe the school, the head teacher wasn't necessarily wanting to actively discriminate against people. It's perhaps something they've just not thought about before. Maybe they've not had an LGBT plus member of staff who wanted to be open. So yeah, I guess it's just about starting conversations as well, and being that person to bring it to the forefront.
But you know, Olly, I'm a white gay man, and so issues of sexuality have been in my life forever. But recently, I've been educating myself and really doing a lot of work and talking to a lot of people about issues around race and ethnicity, because you know, I pride myself on being inclusive and being open and being welcoming. But my level of understanding still wasn't as good as it should have been. And you'll find that, you know, exactly what you've just said, that it may not be that the head teacher or the senior team within the school is being bigoted or being discriminatory. It just may be that they've never encountered that particular issue within their school before. You know, and so there's a lot of education and a lot of work still to be done. And I think, you know, the more we have these conversations, the easier it will become for the next person, because that young teacher who may be 23 years old, who's going into a school for the first time, in 10 or 15 years, they will be the next head teacher. And we need to make sure that they're ready to take on that responsibility that comes with leading a school, to make sure that we are open and inclusive and welcoming of all members of our society.
Exactly. It's always about learning and breaking down doors so that others can walk through them.
Absolutely.
And that is the end of part 1. I hope you have found that useful already. There's just so much to unpack and discuss with this topic, and that's the reason I split it into 2. And next time I talk with Gary about section 28, how to successfully navigate coming out to a class of primary age children, and advice for teachers who identify as transgender. So thanks for listening to part 1. Once again, you can help me to make more content like this at popandolly.com/donate, and make sure you check out those Pop and Olly member perks too. Cool. Thank you so much. And I'll see you next time for part 2.